Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley is the youngest lieutenant governor to be ever elected to the office in this whole country. He is very pragmatic, an inclusive solutionist with a long-range vision. He worked in partnership with Governor Snyder and played a major role in the comeback of Michigan. He's a tireless advocate for inclusion in Michigan. He's been honored as one of the Crain's Detroit's Business 40 Under 40 and has received several leadership awards over the years. He received national recognition from Autism Speaks and U.S. Junior Chamber, which named him one of the 10 outstanding young Americans. As you know, he's very, very young. We are honored and privileged to have Lieutenant Governor Keynote here and really engage the entrepreneurial community right here with TiECon Detroit. And not only is the youngest governor, he's also a young-looking lieutenant governor. You would see that. And so please put your hands together and welcome this forward-looking leader who is intent on building the best Michigan for everyone, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Thank you for what you do and believe in the environment here in Michigan enough to take your ideas and turn them into opportunities in communities all across our state. This really has been an exciting time to be engaged. I thought we might spend a couple minutes looking backward about how far we've come and the things that have made a difference, and then, but mostly orient this discussion toward where we go from here. You know, it wasn't that long ago when Michigan was kind of at the bottom of the list, right? It doesn't matter what list you're talking about. Or actually, let me put it this way. If there's a list you want to be at the top of, we were at the bottom. And there's a list that you'd rather be at the bottom of, we were at the top, right? So that was kind of where we were about a decade ago. And so we really started, we got back to fundamentals and the reinvention of this state. We couldn't rely on all the things that happened in the past because the world changes, and the world changes pretty fast. And rather than desperately hoping for the past to continue, we needed to embrace the future and go after the future with everything that we have. And so we started with something real simple, balancing the budget, right? Create a sustainable and predictable environment here in our state to where we'd cover the basics. We'd have a balanced budget, pay down the debt, save for the future. And so that's where we started. Then we did tax reform. You know, there was we had a legacy of a tax code here in our state that throughout my entire lifetime had been one of the worst in the nation. Tax Foundation put us at second worst. Or, you know, the governor, he always likes to be really positive. He talks about relentless positive action. So instead of saying we were second worst, I'll say we were 49th best. Right, 49th best. And we decided we couldn't fix that old tax code. So we decided to scrap it entirely, because what was happening is the small companies, like sole proprietors and LLCs and partnerships, S corporations, their income was getting taxed twice, right? Because it flowed through the personal tax return, but then also there was this other business tax. So we decided the new tax code for all of those hundreds of thousands of small and mid-sized businesses that operate as pass-through entities, they shouldn't even have to file a tax return, right? They already do the personal tax return, that's enough. And then for everybody else, you have the corporate income tax for the C corporations. And to have that simple, fair, and efficient went from being very complicated to being very simple, from being uncompetitive to being competitive, just getting back to the basics. It was a major statement that we made across the country. Now there was, and people really did start to notice right away. By the end of 2011, things really were looking and feeling different in our state. And then we started working on regulatory reform. You have all these rules and regulations, and you know, for huge companies, they have compliance departments and human resources departments, and they have all these. They have people that can deal with all the regulations. But when it comes to entrepreneurs and small companies and those that are trying to go from that first stage to the second stage, well, the owner of the business is the chief salesperson and the technical and compliance officer and the human resources director and the copy machine jam fixer and whatever it needs to get done, right? So every minute that is spent on dealing with a regulatory system is time that's not spent building the business. And so we got rid of a couple thousand rules and regulations. That work never ends, right? You always have to stay on top of that to create that environment where people have the best possible shot at taking their idea from the back of the napkin all the way through to hiring people and fruition. But we started to see our problems change. Right in the beginning, our problem is no jobs. Right, everybody agreed the problem is no jobs. We lost more jobs than anybody in the previous decade. And then jobs started coming back, and investment was coming back. And I remember we hit the first 100,000 new jobs created in our state in a long time, and it was momentum. And you could feel and see, taste the momentum out there. And then it was 250,000 new jobs that had been created, and our unemployment rate was coming down. And then we started hearing from employers a whole different set of problems. Like, we're having a hard time finding people with the right skills to fill the jobs that we have open today. And then entrepreneurs and investors and jobs kept on growing. 500,000 new private sector jobs created in our state in a pretty short period of time. And unemployment hits a 17-year low. Now I hear employers say, listen, I didn't care about skills. Give me somebody to show up for work on time and pass a drug test. They got the job. Right? I'll take care of the training part of it. And as problems go, this is a good problem to have. But as we look toward the future, what we really need to focus on the most and what will create the best and most vibrant economy here in Michigan, the one that creates the most opportunity for ourselves and our kids and our grandkids, it's really about investment in people. Because talent is the new currency of economic development. When people are looking at where am I going to plant my flag, where am I going to invest, where am I going to grow, where am I going to move, we're finding more and more often the thing that makes or breaks the deal is the question, do you have the people that can do the things I need to do in order to make this business work? And so, as we look at our education system, we know that we've got some work to do. We have a system that was built a long time, across the whole country, an education system that was built a long time ago. But the world has changed, and what is required to be competitive in a 21st century global economy has changed so much. And so where do we go from here? First, I want to talk about flexibility. In our education system, there are certain things that everybody needs to know, but as a person moves ahead in their education system, we let this pendulum swing to a place where we kind of defined success in just one way, where we say to kids, here's one definition of success, and that's that you go from high school to a 4-year university. Right? That's the only thing. Everything else is a consolation prize. Any other path that you take is somehow lesser. But we see all kinds of opportunity to make a great living in trades and in professional trades and skilled trades. That might include college, it might include trade school, it might include apprenticeship, it might include all kinds of different aspects of education after high school, and yet there's a stigma attached to most of them except for those that go through a traditional university. And so what if we had the type of system that showed kids all of the opportunities that were available to them early so they could develop their own hopes and dreams and aspirations for the future, and then we had a system that was nimble and flexible enough to help them achieve their goals. And what if we took the focus a little bit off from the standardized testing obsession that exists in the education system today, and instead of preparing kids to take tests, let's prepare them to be successful in life and out there in the world. Because those things aren't necessarily the same. In fact, I would argue they're not the same. And so where do we go from here? We need innovation in the ability for flexibility innovation within our education system. I'm going to give you just a simple example or illustration. In fact, I'll give you a couple of examples before we open up a conversation here. we have a foreign language requirement in our schools. You need to take a couple years of foreign language in order to graduate from high school. Now this is based on the fact that a lot of colleges really do like to see kids take foreign language. You know, one of the things that does not count as a foreign language, and maybe should, how about computer coding, programming? I mean, I took a programming class when I was at my freshman year at Michigan State, and I can vouch for it. It's a foreign language, right? It's something totally different than English. And so the idea that we would say to kids, you know, if this is where you want to go in, maybe you could spend your time learning coding instead of French. And would that be so bad? By the way, I took French in high school. Even when I went to France, I didn't use it, okay? Nothing against it. I'm just saying that if we have an education system that allows kids to explore all the things they could do with their life and then support them in achieving that outcome. Also, there's a false choice that we say, like it's either trades or academics. But the thing is, I can tell you from personal experience, even in helping my son learn math, is that you can use the trades to teach the academics. You can teach algebra, or geometry especially, in a construction trades class. If you are in agriculture today and you don't know soil chemistry, you're going to go out of business, because the yields that you have to survive require that you know exactly what the soil chemistry is and how to treat it in order to get the highest yields. So you can teach biology or chemistry in FFA or all kinds of other different options. And so I think we need to reject the false narrative that this model that we're engaging in right now, that we have in most of our schools, where it's like a teacher stands in front and gives theory to a group of kids that are listening, that's not the only way to do it. In fact, I'd argue it's probably not the best way to do it, especially when it comes to getting kids excited about the things that they can do with their life. And so as we move forward from where we stand today, the more that we can do to help kids understand where opportunities are earlier, with things like FIRST Robotics, for example, or Science Olympiad. I love competitions where kids are exploring these different things. You know, in FIRST Robotics, right, we're teaching them mechanical engineering and electrical work and programming and project management while they think they're just playing with robots, right? But it's sparking that interest, so that when that child is growing up and moving through the education process, they can imagine how this education is going to impact or prepare them for whatever it is, wherever their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations take them. And if we do that, we're going to do well in the future. The other thing I'll say is we can't leave productivity sidelined. So we have a society that has been able to get away with individuals being sidelined and kind of set aside and not contributing to our society. And here in America, where work is in our DNA, right? When you meet somebody, what's the first thing that you talk about? You meet a brand new person, the first thing you talk about, right? What you do, what you do as a profession, your career. Now, if you have a person who doesn't have that, then there's so much, aside from just the obvious independence issues, it's just so separate from what's happening out there in the world. We can't afford to leave productivity sidelined. So when it comes to people with disabilities, we've got to find ways to make sure that people with disabilities have a fair shot at getting a chance to show what they can do. And I'm not talking about charity here. I'm not talking about giving somebody a job that they're not qualified for. I'm saying people with disabilities have to be creative and innovative and determined and have perseverance just to get through the day. Now, creativity, innovation, perseverance, determination, don't these sound like great qualities you'd want in your workforce? And yet, for some reason, a person with a disability, we always see the can't first instead of the can. Well, everybody in this room has got all kinds of can'ts, right? I know I've got things that I'm lousy at. And thankfully, I'm not defined by those things. I built my life around my passions, built my life around my strengths. A person with a disability gets defined according to their can'ts. That's not fair. And so having a system where we really do explore the potential and help connect people to opportunity, that's where I think we're really in a position where we could totally change what full employment even means. We have people that, we have an addiction epidemic sweeping across our nation. It's taken sidelined people, in some cases permanently sidelining people, but we can't allow that to be the outcome. We can't say, well, the person became addicted to something and so therefore they're not worth it anymore. When you get them back in the mainstream, beat the addiction and get back to productivity, become a contributing member of our society. We cannot afford to leave the demand is too great out there. Like, we need people's productivity. They need to be productive and we need them to be productive. And then the last group, this is the hardest one, so just prepare you for it ahead of time. That even when a person has really messed up and maybe even hurt us, and they're getting out of jail or getting out of prison, the reason our recidivism rate is so high is because, well, what do you expect? You get $50 a bus ticket leaving prison, what are you going to do? And what we see is that there's too many that come right back to prison. But what we started here in Michigan is teaching high-demand skilled trades as people, because most people go to prison, they get released someday. So as you're approaching your release date, why not teach things like welding and plumbing and machining, you know, the things that are really in high demand today, and then connect people as they're leaving with employers that are either big-hearted employers that want to give somebody a chance, or they're just so desperate that they'll hire outside of their normal practices. And what we've found was that there's a high degree of success. Vocational Village and the Hanlon Correctional Facility in Ionia, we've been doing this for over a year now. And everybody that's gone through that and learned the skill and been connected with a job, we have, after maybe 16 months of doing this, only one parole violation among that group of people. But doesn't it stand to reason that if you leave with prospects, you're going to do better? We cannot afford to leave productivity sidelined. And so we're in all of these different areas. That's what we're doing today, is to try and make sure that we have the workforce that can do everything that our businesses need in order to grow, because we know that growth and demand in people, it creates opportunity in our communities, and it pushes wages up so that we have income growth for our people. And at the end of the day, it gives people the connection to what they need to live a full and independent, self-determined life. So I'm really excited about where we go from here, how we can use this high demand for people to inspire change in our general education system, but then to also solve some of our toughest problems that exist out there in the world by connecting people with opportunity. Well, you're the people that create that opportunity. Take the chance, put your reputation and your capital and your ideas on the line in order to do that, and we're stronger because of it. So I want to say thank you.